Hey everyone, I wanted to do a video on this presentation slash dashboard that I did for Queen Mary University today. We didn't get a chance to finish it, and the students were really keen. And so I thought, what better way than to create a video, show how I built it, and also share it with everybody else who could be interested. So the dashboard that we have here is analyzing Brexit's impact on London property prices. Enough time has passed so that we can kind of see where things have landed, especially by different districts, boroughs, and by different areas. And you can get this data through the HM Land Registry. So if I go back one here, you can see the price paid data. So pretty easy to get. But I'll be honest with you, I actually didn't get this myself. I got this as a demo data set from the information lab. It's something that we use when we teach our clients. So if I go back to this dashboard using that data, I'm only looking at transactions that occurred post June 23rd, 2016. That was the date in which the Brexit vote occurred, so people were just not sure what to make of it after that, I guess. So I have a couple of features in here. I have a map that outlines the different areas, and so those areas are also here. I have the boroughs. I have a highlight table that talks about the percent difference in average price. So here, for June 2016, the percent difference of itself would be 0%, and we want to measure the percent difference compared to the first date. So the more orange the value is, the greater the decrease against this initial date, June 2016, and the more blue it is, the higher the average price is from that date. So you can see that in South London, there's a lot of orange. North London, a lot of orange, with the exception of Islington, which may or may not be surprising. West London, actually a lot of blue, but possibly not so surprising that it's in Chelsea and Kensington, and even in Hammersmith and Fulham. So I have a little bit of supplementary data to go with this, what's happening in the last date of the data set that I have. So what is the average price in August 2017? What is the number of transactions in that month, as well as what is the share of transactions or sales that were leasehold or freehold properties. So apologies to other folks who've seen some of my other dashboards. The formatting is not super heavy here. It's meant to be something really basic for folks, though I do think for a 2-hour session, this is still pushing the bounds. So this is the dashboard that I had shown them that we had tried to build but ran out of time. So why don't we dive in to building this dashboard? The first thing that we're going to do is build in some of our spatial data. Then we're going to make some of these charts down here. Okay, so I'm going to use Tableau 10.5. I'm going to connect into it. Right. Okay, London transactions data set. And then I'm going to add my spatial data. So this is here. And I happen to know that I need to join on district, and in this data set, it's going to be called name. Now this isn't going to work, or I'm going to get a bunch of nulls. Yeah, this isn't going to work because in this data set, all of my districts have upper and lower case, whereas in this data set, my districts are all uppercase. So just need to fix that up with a join calculation. So in here, I'm going to make everything upper. I'm going to hit OK. Let's check if that came through. We're looking for the geometry field, the polygon data to come through, and that looks pretty good. So just to make everything a bit more stable, I'm going to hit the extract button here. We actually didn't talk about extracts at the session, but think of it as where we've set two temporary tables together, but we're going to tell Tableau, hey, treat it as just one larger table. Don't think about the conditions that we have there, kind of meld that into one. And that creates a localized copy that will sit somewhere on my machine. So you see how when I started to move away from this, Tableau was like, hey, where do you want this new table to be created? and it's going to probably default to your My Tableau repository slash data sources. And I'm just gonna say that there. And I've already tried this multiple times, as you can see, so I would like to replace it. The magic of video editing. So this data set has around 133,000 records. Um, so yeah, not too bad. Okay. So we have some fields in here like addresses, freehold, leasehold, districts that we were looking at, property type. Let's just start making our map. So I'm just going to double click on geometry and it gives us one really nice polygon, but it only has one mark. So that means there's only one data point. So I'm going to increase this granularity. I'm going to make sure that the detail comes through by dropping district onto detail, and suddenly, Tableau is treating them as individual shapes. Now here I'm going to start to create my little areas that I had before. So I think this is approximately North London, and all I did was I, you know, just selected and dragged my mouse. Ooh, and I'm going to right click, hit group. Then I'm going to select and drag my mouse again, and I'm selecting too many polygons, so I'm just going to press the control button and deselect it, and hit group again. So I have my second group. Then I'm going to select these guys, deselect those ones, group, and let's just say the rest of this is South London. So we're going to hit group. All right, so I have 5 individual categories, and at this point I'm probably going to edit the group names. So this looks like East London. This looks like North London. South. And West. And this one is just the City of London, so maybe just call that City. All right, so we have some of these colors here. Now I'm not a super big fan of these colors, so I'm gonna go and try and change them. Okay. Maybe what color palette do I like? So maybe I'll send that one, something like that. Apply. Yeah, not bad. Okay, so this is our map. Now, the second thing I want to build is the 3 bar charts on the right. Now, what they were was districts. So I'm going to try and find that here. District. And then we're going to pull in price. And we're going to, in this case, I'm going to right click drag, and I'm going to get this menu, and I want to pick average price. This is the average price. And hit I didn't have label on that one, so I'm going to leave it like that. So that's the average price over all time. And then why don't we look at the number of transactions? So sum of those. And then we are going to create the last piece. Go back here, which is a percent of total. So we haven't talked about this at all, table calculations. But in order for us to build this, we would need an extra piece of functionality, table calculations. Now what this is doing is calculating what percentage of each of the transactions in each district are, freehold or leasehold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag one more of these to columns so I can populate my third part. And here I can create, I can see when every time I pulled one of these in, I'm getting an extra one of these tabs. So I'm going to pick this last one because it goes in the same order. So you see average price, number of records, and number of records. And then I'm going to bring freehold, leasehold to color. And what that does is it separates it by, each individual item. So these ones are telling me, there's 3,600 that are leasehold and 582 that are freehold. Now, if I want to calculate the proportion, all I have to do is click on this menu and go down here and I see quick table calculation, and the exact same thing, and the exact thing that I want is the percent of total. Select that. Now what this is doing is it's calculating the percent of total across this entire piece. Now what I actually want is for this bar to stretch all the way across, which means I need to tell Tableau, hey, can you please calculate this for each district? Now in order for us to do that, we're going to go back into the menu, we're going to edit the table calculation, and the way to read this configuration is a bit tricky sometimes, is you would, in order to set it like permanently, you click on specific dimensions, and for each box that is unchecked, it's a for each statement. So what we're telling Tableau here is for each district, calculate me the split between freehold and leasehold. Okay. So there we go. That's exactly what we want. It's calculated the percentage, and we can visually see that there is a lot of leasehold in Tower Hamlets and well, relatively fewer in Barking and Denenham. All right. Okay, so one thing that we're missing from this is that it's not filtering to the last date. So why don't we bring that to filter, and we're going to select the month and year. Then we're going to select the last date. Oh, turns out. Oh, I've selected August data because September data didn't seem like it was complete, so I thought August was probably a safer way to go. Hit apply. Right. So now everything here is reflecting August 2017 data. So in order to get the header up top here that I have in this view, I just control drag this to columns and suddenly it appears. I'm gonna clean this up a little bit. I'm gonna hide this, and that shows up on top. Now I have my axes moving at the top here, so just to kind of clean up. In Tableau, there's no way yet in which you can have this appear at the top. So the only way in which we can do it is to duplicate these axes and then merge them together. So I'm going to do it by holding down the control key, and I'm going to drag it across, and what that does is it duplicates the value. Then on the second one, I'm going to hit dual axes, and oh, it's changing my mark type. All right, so it's changed my mark type because as I was building this visualization, it was set to automatic. So I'm going to go in here and set everything to marks and just confirm that. So you can see now for average price, I have it on both. So I'm going to finish it up. Oops, go back. I'm going to finish it up with my number of records here. So I'm going to go dual axes and, oh man, go back. Yeah, here we go. Dual axes. And this is just a vanity thing, just so I can get this thing to show up at the top. So I think what's happened is it's put my one overlapping the other. So I'm just going to move these around. Oh wait, no, this one's supposed to be the same. It's this one that probably needs to be moved around. There we go. All right, and I'm going to get rid of this bottom part here. There's no way for us to hide it without hiding the top part, because if I go right click, show header, it'll remove the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, edit axes, hit none, do the same here, so it doesn't show. Kind of like tricking Tableau. And I'll also get rid of these. Oops. Okay. So in this one, you may have noticed I'm not right clicking, I'm just double clicking on the axes, and that kind of does the same thing to bring up the menu. Okay, I don't like this. Change this to number of transactions. Sure. All right, cool. I don't quite like the color of these, so maybe I will change that. Sometimes I just do this. I just double click on the color itself and it gives me this. Let's pick a nicer color scheme. Maybe I'll go with, oh man, what was I at before? Maybe I'll pick something like that. Yeah, something different, right? Actually, I shouldn't do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the exact color. So I'm minimizing my screen. I'm going to minimize this screen. Push this over, and I'm going to pick the exact color. So I'm going to duplicate, or double click, and I'm going to pick a screen color. This is the color here. I'm going to drag this color picker that I've chosen, pick another color, this exact color, pick that over here. And since I'm here, I may as well actually figure these all out too. I really like this trick where you can pick the screen color and then drag your color into the custom colors here. Really useful. So let's see, this one was the purple, this one was the gray, apply, boom, perfect. Exact hex masters. All right, so let's call this bar charts. All right, that's pretty much done for that one. Maybe the last piece that we want is put in the groups that we had just created. We'll put that in here, something like that. All right, great. And then the last piece is this highlight table. Now let's take a look at it again. So I know I've got some date in here. I've got groups, districts, and some color on the calculation. So let's build that. So in date, drag that into the view. Now when you drag dates into the view, it defaults to year. So I'm going to push the level of granularity of this down to be more detailed. So I want down to the month year, continuous date. And then at that point, I also want the districts on rows, and I also want my group. Where's my group? Ah, here. This. I put that on rows, so I have the similar shape. Almost there. Now let's bring number of records. So these are my transactions. Oh wait, no, sorry. This part was actually average price. So I'm going to bring average price here to the detail. I'm going to change this granularity to average. Now if I click on this dot area and I select label, I can see these are the average prices for this each date for each district. Now, this doesn't look great, so why don't we put this on color? Okay, still not great. I'll convert this type to square. Okay, almost there. The reason why it's rendering like this is because this actually needs to be a discrete field. More on that later, possibly, if we want to do more videos. But in this case, in order for this highlight table to show in the way that we wanted, we needed top and bottom rows and columns to be discrete. So now what we're getting is kind of a blurry mess because it's looking at the average price, and there's a big range of prices here. So why don't we start putting in our percent difference calculation. So very similar to what we're doing before with the percent of total. I'm going to click on this, go to quick table calculation, and select percent difference. Now when Tableau does this, the default is going to be relative to previous. Now I want this actually relative to first. It's going to look at the very first piece of data that I have, looking across the table. So we want it to look at the very first one. So yeah, great, we're getting a lot closer. So these are all going to be zeros, as the calculation for this is computing across the table. Now if we wanted to see what that actually means, all table calculations are is just like a really neat packaged way of putting it in. But if you wanted to like deconstruct it, I've just opened a calculations pane. Let me do that again. So I'm going here, I create a calculated field, and you can just drag that in. And usually I do this a lot as a way to save time because I already have a calculation. And I'm just going to hold down Control as I drag this into the calculations window, and it has the calculation. So this, kind of seems like a lot if you aren't used to looking at something like this, but all it's really telling us is, hey, look at the current price, the average price. The ZN just means if it's a null, replace it with 0. So just essentially, what is the price? So find it, and then find the average price from the position of first, and subtract the difference. Then divide it by the value of the first. So it's exactly what you would expect, except Tableau is giving us the ability to configure this piece. So it's a little different if you haven't seen it, but pretty straightforward if you're used to this sort of thing. So I'm going to close this. All right, so this is starting to look a little bit more like what we were expecting. Now, in my dashboard, I had actually set it, the filter, to be at a very particular price point. I had actually set the price point to be up to 400,000. So let's do that just so we can see that. So I'm going to go to price. I'm going to drag that to filters. And then when I do that, I'm going to get a menu. And this menu has all filters, sum, average. And what we want to select is all values, because what that's going to do is it's going to look at each individual record to see if it's a match, rather than filtering out for the average values. Quite a big difference. So I'm going to click all values. And let's say I only want to select up to 400K. All right. So that's a quick tip. If you put K in there, it will automatically convert it to the thousands that we want. So this is starting to look a lot more like the story that we were talking about before. Lots of orange in South London, North London, with the exception of Islington, and West London looks like it did pretty okay. All right, let's go highlight table. Cool, let's start constructing our dashboard. So I've just gone down here, I've selected this dashboard menu, new dashboard, and I'm going to start dragging things into the view. Bar charts, map. All right, not beautiful yet, but we'll get there. Let's just change this to automatic. All right, so a big part of this is also kind of the alignment piece. So, okay, let's bring the show title in here. It was something like that. Maybe this was further up. And these were kind of more side by side. You can see that this stuff isn't really lining up super great. So maybe we'll get rid of this piece, get rid of the title here. Change that, just moving it down a little bit more. Now this one, it doesn't have the same effect when it's got like these rectangular squares. I found it to be much more effective when I made them like the square squares. Like, so what you can do is you can select the sheet. See how there's a little arrow and it has more options. So change the fit to fit entire view, and then that squishes everything to fit it in the entire view. For me, I want the labels to show a bit more. Right. Cool. That looks pretty nice, actually. Okay, so here, let's see. Now, in order for us to do this, unfortunately, they have to sit in two different sheets, and they're just not sorting in the right way. So maybe I will go into this sheet and I will default the sort to alphabetical to match this side, so things don't get confusing. Clear sort. So when I clear sort, it will default sort to automatic. Okay. Let's hide this. Right click, uncheck show header. Right, so we're getting closer. Starting to look like something we recognize. Now this part I cannot do away with. I can't right click, uncheck show header, or else the top part that we worked so hard for will go away. So in order to kind of make this more congruent, I'm going to add a blank sheet, kind of pad this out a little bit. All right. Let me bring this, maybe I'll bring this price up a little bit so that it matches. Okay. In this one, I'm also going to ask it to fit entire view. Great. This looks a little too wide. I like to keep this square shape. Looks pretty nice like that. But I want this to be a little shorter. So I'm going to convert it from automatic to fixed size. And so it's going to keep that shape there. And I'm going to make it a bit less wide. And then I can shift this over. It's a funny thing about data visualization. Like it's has a lot to do with the analytics part, but proportion and the shape of your data, those kind of go hand in hand. So sometimes there's a little bit of fidgeting around. Right. Okay, this is starting to look a lot closer to what we had. Okay, great. This was down here, I think, and this part was at the top. Like that. Move this over here. This was kind of in the middle. Maybe we'll pad that out here. Another sheet. Get rid of that. So all I'm doing here is just kind of dragging the margins up. So things will fit. Right. Okay, I'm gonna hide this. Push this over a little more. Push that up. And I think we might need something here. Just gonna fit that together. Close, but no cigar. Okay, so why don't I bring in one of these things called containers so I can adjust these to sit together. So they're pretty much kind of like grouping objects in PowerPoint. So when I do that, I get the container is one of these blue things. I'm going to select this sheet that's gray and I'm going to pop that in there. So then when I pop this other sheet that I have into this container, see how it creates that shadow? They're going to sit together. So if I double click on this, it'll select the container that it sits in. And add one more so I can pad the top. So now you see when it's sitting in a container, I can edit the height. Now let's see if 15 will do it for me. 15. Okay, let's make this one a little taller maybe. All right, cool. Okay, let's change the formatting of this. So it's a bit not nice to look at. Let's change this to a, what's the date format here? Dates. This isn't what we want. No. All right, actually, in Tableau, there's many ways to skin a cat, and I've just realized that this format is probably not what I actually want it to be. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in something different. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to build it with date dragged onto columns, and I'm going to hit this plus mark so that it breaks down the granularity. Now, luckily for me, my calculations don't break. That's just because of the way that I had set it up. Now, in this case, I don't really need this level of detail. I'll just take order away. And so when I right click here on the format, on the month part, I can get this thing that shows up. So what I really wanted was just for the first letter of that month to show up there. So I have very little real estate to work with in this particular chart. So I wanted to make the best use of it as I could. maybe what I had before was slightly better. All right, something like that. Why don't we get rid of right-click format? I'm going to get rid of the column dividers. And here, I'm just selecting somewhere on the sheet. Right-click format. I'm going to select grid. None. Oops, that was the rows. Yeah, I may as well get rid of that too. Why not? Get rid of ones here. And I find that as I'm doing this, I just get like a much cleaner look in the visualization. That's a big part. Just trying to remove the clutter so that people can focus on what's most important. Right. Something like that. Maybe for this one, we'll format this to make the font a bit larger. 15. Actually, kind of think of it, maybe we need the rows so then people can see the way across. It's an iterative process. What can you do? But it looks much better without the columns, in my opinion. But with the rows, people can still follow where things are going. Okay, this is definitely too large. Format. And let's change this down to 11, actually. Yeah, it's pretty close. Almost there. Maybe we'll switch this around so that this has a bit more space. Kind of sits around there. Here, I'm going to edit this so it just says transactions. So pretty much the dashboard's already done. I'm just doing a bit of cleanup and format. Oops, I don't want that. I actually want to edit this title, this axis name, so that it's a bit cleaner. I'm going to just call this percentage freehold. Okay, and then here I'm going to format and change this to purple. Oops. Format the axes so this changes to purple. So hopefully people understand that this is what that's referring to. Now, in this case, I probably want the purple to be on the other side, so I'm just going to select the color and drag that down, and it'll just do that for me. It'll do the exact same thing in the sheet as well. All right. Oh, one last thing that's missing. Right, the filter. Now, you can see that the filter is applying to this sheet because we can see the patterns that we were talking about before, like in Islington here, but it's not applying to the rest of the sheet. So why don't we go into right click or click on this little arrow and go into price. And once I hit that, I show that this shows up. So I drag that in here. And the more options, I can tell it which sheets to apply to. So I want it to, let's say, apply to the bar chart as well. Okay. From here, maybe I'll give this a better title, like Brexit's impact on London property prices. All right. I think that's about it. I think that's everything. I think that if you guys found this particular session interesting and find the design aspect to be, something creatively liberating, I think data analysis will be something that you'll love, and especially in visualization. But that's all I have for this dashboard. The last thing I've got is publishing it to Tableau Public, and maybe I'll just show you that, and we'll call it a day. All right, so in order for me to get this dashboard from here all the way up to something like this, I'll go into server in the menu, I'll hit Tableau Public, and I'll save to Tableau Public as, or save to Tableau Public. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to override this one, just so when you see it, it's going to be exactly the same match. That's fine. I'll override it. So sometimes what happens at this stage is Tableau might ask you to create an extract of your data before it moves to Tableau Public. In this case, we had actually already done it when we were setting up our data, so that's why it's not asking us to do that now. And yeah, it's just about to finish. All right, great. So you can tell it's loading. It's moving up here. It's caching the previous image, but that's okay because now it's just got this image up here. Okay, got it. So that's my video on how to create this particular dashboard. Hope it was useful, and thanks for watching. All right, bye.